business and taking care of yours too. How that work? You know what I'm saying? And you know, we already,
like the old folks say, you ain't gonna catch no fish watching
my line. You know what I'm saying?
I gotta get you now. Oh, missed it. Oh, I got it. Okay, man, look like we live in here again.
We live.
Welcome y'all, man. This is the Press Box. First and foremost, if you haven't hit the subscribe button, the like button, share it with somebody, tell somebody, man, that we in here dropping these facts. We in here telling you the real. And I'm in here with a good brother, man. It's the first time a brother came on here, but like I was telling you, he ain't a guest. Even if it's the first time, we building something right now. I'm gonna let him introduce himself.
Right on. Peace, family. This the good brother, second son. That's second with a K. S-U-N. Because I am Carolyn's second son. And I consider myself to be a humanitarian. So however you choose to define that word humanitarian, it basically to me means that I'm involved in assisting humanity that has failed in some type of way. So when I say I consider myself to be a humanitarian, I'm saying I know that I'm here to assist in uplifting fallen humanity. And once again, it's your good brother, second son. Get used to seeing his face around here at the Press Box Media Group, because we're going to keep it warm, we're going to keep it hot, and we're going to cool it off when it needs to be cooled off. You understand?
Hey, man, we really done set up here and did a 2-hour show already.
Yeah, like for real.
Before the camera cut on, man. Yeah. A lot of times that be the most fire shit.
Right.
You know, but we here right now, man, to, you know, break the mold on a lot of shit, man, that's really in our heads and our mentals that got us shackled down or got us behind. You know what I'm saying, with the times, and got us in this condition that we in. I know
trying to get that mind right.
We was talking earlier before the camera started rolling just about how we got in this position or got behind the 8-ball and how long. People don't really know that, man. We just know we here and we hate each other.
Right. And we yeah, man, that's a very that's a very important part of our story, is knowing how we got to the level of where we are literally hating one another, like to the extent of where we don't want to see the next man evolve, do better, eat good, you know what I mean, see better, walk better, etc. We really have to understand how we got to that point of or that mentality or mindset. We really need to, you see what I'm saying, break down historically how it's capable for a people. Once again, you have different nationalities of people, or what we call different races of people, you understand, that we know on the record work together for the good. We can name any nationality outside of the so-called black people. We already know that there is a collective spirit of unity with every other nationality of people.
No matter what, no matter what we do not let these niggas get ahead.
And you see, and that right there is the reason why we need to walk down this historical timeline so we can figure out how it was even able, you see, the whole business was able to be shifted like that, to where our destiny is in somebody else's hand. We have to walk once again down this historical timeline as it pertains to history, science, and law. Not emotions, but history, science, and law, so we can figure out and unpack, you see, the detriment that has been bestowed on my people. And how do we do that? This is how we do that.
Come on.
Once again, not with emotions. What do we mean by not with emotions? Emotionally dealing with something is when you don't have a holistic view on what you're talking about. That's one example or one way to define how you are emotionally responding to something. You see, for an example, politics is 2020. It's very important now that we know as a people what politics is and what it means to a people. And how do we do that? We walk down, once again, a historical timeline as it pertains to and relates to history, science, and law. And when we do that, we'll find out how this Republican Party was born, this Democratic Party was born. Party was born. Now, once again, in 2020, we know that we far removed, a lot of us are far removed from even being interested in history. And we have to know that politics is definitely a part of history. And when we say politics, let us be specific when we say politics. Politics meaning, once again, you have a Democratic Party and you have a Republican Party. How did these two parties form? This is how they form in a very edited version. The Democratic and Republican Party was formed by a corporation of people, human beings, sitting down like you and I, sitting down at a table with minds. These men had brains. This is not a fairy tale about how this, what we call a country, was created, which in all essence is not a country, but a corporation.
Now, so that mean like the country that we in right now, the United States of America,
right,
is nothing more than a big old business.
Nothing more than a business.
With the president being something like the CEO, the face of the business.
Ill.
Okay.
Ill.
I just want to put that out there.
Ill, the
Make sure we're on the same page.
Yes, sir. Ill, the CEO. And once again, this corporation is ran just like any other corporation. A Walmart is there. He or she is sitting in a seat to administer these different rules or laws or guidelines. For example, at Walmart, if you are an Walmart employee, let's say you are a smoker, you smoke. Within the bylaws or the rules or guidelines within your employee manual, you will know that you can't just come in at your register, if that's where you work, and file up a cigarette. That would be against the company policies. There you have it. So just as well as you have that example in that form of a corporation, we can lay out the same type of example of law or rules or guidelines in this corporation. And once again, the CEO being the president of this corporation, because we all know that the president doesn't solely make decisions for the quote unquote country. We already know that there's an elect group, the Electoral College, you see, the Continental Congress, you see, is there in place to actually run this corporation as far as it pertains to like what is law and what is not law. Now, once again, how is that possible for grown people that are considered citizens, you see, all of a sudden end up in an employee role. How is that possible? This is possible with consent of the governed. That's how this is possible. Consent of the governed means this. In 1776, on the 4th of July, this corporation was created. We use this word corporation because we have to know in 2020 that this is what's going on. You see, there's no time for playing games anymore. You see, this is 2020. Once again, we have babies. I have babies. I have grandchildren hitting the ground now. You see, so it's very important to me, once again, as a humanitarian, to do my due diligence on what is and what ain't. Now, once again, when we walking through this creation of a corporation that started 1776, on the 4th of July, it was put into motion that now we're able to take human bodies and turn their birthright into an employee. That's just to make it plain. You're
From the time you come out the womb, you saying?
From the time that you come out your mother's womb. Because this corporation was created, you see, and the way it's ran off human bodies. Because you see, you remember 1619. Let's go back to 1619 when you had human beings being held as prisoners of war. Now, of course, in history we call them slaves, but they really, you know, my ancestors that had to endure physical slavery really can be considered prisoners of war. Now let's walk through it. 1619 is when the physical slavery started on this landmass that we live in right now, that we're domiciled in, that you see what I'm saying, we're doing business in right now. 1619 on the shores of Virginia, right over there in Virginia is where these first sets, I believe the exact number was 20, is what they give us in history. It was 20 human beings that were kidnapped and forced to work for free. Yeah, let's make a long story short. Now, of course, we have to deal with history in truth and know that these prisoners of war, the European or the so-called white man didn't just go snatch them up freely. There had to be a middleman because the European did not speak the language of these people where they were being kidnapped from. So, once again, when we say dealing with this thing in truth and not emotions, we have to know, family, that yes, there was some sellouts. You know, we could use that modern terminology of sellout. There was some sellouts within our nationality of people. You see, there was some so-called black sellouts that enabled this physical slavery to go on. And of course, we got to know why it's going on. It's going on, all of this devilment is going on for financial gain. What is the number one ordeal here? It's about money and power. You have products, natural products like tobacco, you see, and sugar, along with, of course, artillery. A lot of this corn, you see what I'm saying? You got corn, you got sugar, you got tobacco. A lot of this is, we have to know that these are hot commodities. You see, silk, etc. Do your due diligence on, you see, that timeline or that time frame of our historical history. You see? And then you'll find that, oh, okay, everything, the reason for slavery really was about, of course, product. You know what I'm saying? Because, of course, we know our ancestors started to teach these, what are we going to call them? These body snatchers, you know what I'm saying? How to live, the agriculture, etc., how to plant and grow, etc. Eventually, you see, our ancestors would show them how to produce. So once again, we have to keep this in mind when we're talking about this corporation, because we got to know that this is the mindset that this corporation was birthed on. It was birthed on capitalism. And of course, we know that capitalism is not actually, it doesn't automatically define as being something bad, capitalism. But when you work somebody for free and pay them nothing, that form of capitalism, we got to consider that, you see, to be of evil vibrations, you see, and know that, once again, that vibration of evil never died when this corporation was born. Because see, like we're saying, we're going back to 1619 and then we'll work our way to 1776. You see, we got to know that physical slavery was still legal at the time that this corporation was created. Physical slavery was not abolished until 1865. We all know that. So do your due diligence, do your math on that. That this corporation that we misnomer as a country was created July 4, 1776, and ran its businesses through slaves. You see, prisoners of war. That's how all of the wealth is being accumulated for this corporation, is off free labor from 1776 all the way to 1865. You see. Now, what's important to know is on the 4th of July, 1776, these people, you remember we said these were men that sat down and came up with, how we're going to run this country. So we got to keep in mind that up until that point, remember, it's some people, some native people that were shifted around in different places.
Native. Tell us what you mean by that.
When we say native, we mean these people were from this landmass.
No, you're not telling
originally.
You're not telling me you was black people already in the United States, man.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Why don't they teach that? Why don't they tell us that part though?
That's exactly what we're saying. Because once again, when you create a corporation in evil, that is the set vibration of the corporation.
To maintain it.
The evil will never ever go, what should we say, the unused. The evil will never go unused. Like, the evil is going to continue. Because once again, we're talking about vibrations. And when you create, once again, a corporation, you see, in a vibration or on a vibration of evil, you see, it has to continue to work and vibrate on it'll never, watch this, it will never develop morals. It will never develop values because it was birthed in evil. There ain't no turning back. You know how they say, he sold his soul to the devil. Ain't no turning back, you see. And once again, we have to know that these like minds that sat down at the round table, the Continental Congress. Do your due diligence when you hear us say that word, Continental Congress. That's an ancient term for the Senate and the House.
Come on, man. Teach, man.
That's an ancient term. That in its inception, you see, of this corporation, the terminology, the words that were used were different from now. But what we have to do is do our due diligence and find the etymology, you see, the etymology of these words, meaning where they came from. Like if I need to find out something in depth about you, I need to go to the womb that you come from. That's etymology, the science of a word. So once again, the Continental Congress is a premature term for the House and the Senate. You see, and once again, all these people, human beings that sat down, did not have fair in mind. No. They didn't have morals in mind. They didn't have values in mind.
All they had in mind was to conquer.
That's it.
Kill and conquer.
That's it. Because once again, when you're dealing in truth and not emotions, you do your due diligence. History, science, and law will show you that this specific gene that was created and birthed in the Caucasus Mountains of Europe, you see, when you trace it, you'll find that it's beastie. This DNA is very beastie. This DNA does not know how to be moral. This DNA does not know how to exercise compassion. This DNA is of an animalistic form. That's the truth, not
big
emotions.
Facts. Big facts.
Once again, you have to, the burden is on you, family, to go do your due diligence on what we're talking about here. If you want to dispute, the European, they really love, no.
You know, a lot of this shit be fear. It be fear because these are the people that write the check.
Gotcha.
These are the people that in the white coats that's giving us a diagnosis of what's wrong with. These are the people that we send our kids to. These are the people that we fall in love with. So now I'm torn between who I got to sleep with and the truth of the matter.
Gotcha.
But I just want to put that out there because I've noticed, man, why a lot of people won't say what needs to be said.
Yeah. And once again, you just laid it out because there's been a muffle, if you will, symbolically, a muffle put on these individuals' mouth because of that allegiance that you're speaking of. And once again, when we gain a thorough knowledge of self, family, a thorough knowledge of self, we'll find that you the God.
Come on.
You see? And when you the God, there are laws that govern your godship. And long as you obey those laws, you don't have to sugarcoat.
Laugh when shit ain't funny.
There you have it.
When you ain't itching.
There you have it. Or tap dance when you ain't no tap dancer. You see? You know what I mean? So once again, it's very important for us not to deal in emotions. Once again, we're going to keep reiterating on that fact that it's very important that we do not respond to life, especially as it pertains to this trick that has been played on my people as a whole, that you come strictly from slavery. And your history started with you being
pulled off the good ship Jesus.
There you have it. Pulled off the good ship Jesus.
Well, that's a hell of a trick right there, man. That's a hell of a trick to pull.
Absolutely. When you already had a savior, and it was you. You see what I'm saying? You already had a savior to begin with, and that savior was yourself. That's the real, really trick part about it, because once you're taken away from your environment taken away from your culture, your way of living, your way of doing things.
Your language.
Because of course, I'm glad you said that, because with culture comes language, with comes way to dress, with comes way to eat, with comes what to listen to and what not to listen to. Going back to, it's very important that you know who you are, so you'll know what to give your energy to and what not to. See, now once again, when you taking all when all of that is taken away from you as a people, and then you start to give birth to new nations, to more babies, because we got to deal with this 400-year time span here of making babies. As it pertains to human growth and development and epigenetics, you see, as it pertains to that and relates to that, we have 400 years of fear being birthed.
Man,
you're fearful because you coming out of a fearful womb. See, this is law. This is not emotions we talking here. This is law. What are you saying, brother second son? What brother second son is saying here is it's very important that you know that 400-year time frame was very psychologically damaging for, as you can see, nations of babies that were born all the way to 2020 today, because we really see the effects of that political science project that was implemented or exercised on. You see, this political science project that they that was worked out on my people for this 400-year time frame. You see, it's very important for us to know that all of those babies that came out of the wombs of scary mothers, and when we say scary, they fearful because you remember they broke down the family dynamic. She's just a breeder. She's just making babies. So she really can't, you see?
And they took the on the plantation or the farm, whatever you call it, they took the biggest and the strongest black man.
Exactly.
And they beat him to death. Or they beat him to an inch of his death.
Butt breaking.
They beat him to an inch of his death. And they told the mama, if you don't want this to be your son, then you might ought to keep that little Negro in check. Keep that little nigga in check. Or else you know what we'll do to the biggest and the strongest. So now, what like you saying, we got generations of babies, of little sons that was birthed with that fear mentality in their mama's head. As soon as the baby come out the womb, she begins to feed that baby. Now, don't look at them in their eyes. Don't you do this right here. Don't you do this. That man, that wife's supposed to kill you. So that's the type of mentality that was bred into us, that fear mentality, because the mother, even though she was doing it in her best of knowledge in order to save her little son's life, or not to let her son get beat. But that also was the same mentality that also kept us enslaved, that fear. When we outnumbered the motherfuckers on the plantation, how can 6 people run 56? Because what they said, we sick, master. Master sick, we sick. Because we started to care more for master than we did ourselves. Continue, my brother.
We cared more for our master than we did ourselves. You see that and once again, that's very important that we hone in on and highlight that time frame of our history. It's very important, because when we do this, you see, then we start to unpack and unravel the dysfunctions, and we see, okay, that's why. Okay, one of the examples that we can give right now is the dismantle of the family structure. We can see with the baby boom generation, you see, that it started to really take effect then, because going back to this corporation that was created, they started to convince mothers that the corporation will be your baby daddy. Okay. They was telling married couples this, quote unquote married, because that's a whole nother subject. And of course we'll get to that eventually. What marriage really is. But anyway, the corporation started to convince the mother that, okay, yeah, we'll be your baby daddy. We'll give you this assistance, you see, but he has to go, you see. So going back to what you just said, that's still
a hell of a pattern. I see what
that's still the same pattern. You see, the same pattern of evil, because how does it make logical or humane sense to take a child from his or her parents? In anybody's, you see what I'm saying, world, how does that make sense? We're going to tell you how it makes sense. Let's go back to, once again, this corporation was created on an evil vibration. So, like we told you before, it's impossible after you done sold that soul, you see, to buy it back. After it's sold, it's gone. As we can see, we have plenty of historical examples of human beings that sold their soul, and we can go and line that up right now, but we won't do that at this present time. But y'all, if you got any inkling of, you see what I'm saying, some history in you about Hollywood, etc., you can.
Gail King, you fucking bitch. Oh, my bad. Go ahead, continue.
You see? And we have there's a responsibility on us, once again, to delve into this historical timeline and stay within truth and not emotions. Once again, these babies being born, like the good brother said, most of these boys, you see, the boy babies, of course, there was a outright beam, red beam, whatever color beam you want to say, put on those boy babies' heads to do, just like the good brother say, for mama to implement this same, to continue it, this same form of fear in this child, where they, you see what I'm saying, only thing they're going to do is keep their head down and go ahead and, you see, work the field and do what they needed to do.
Hold that thought, bro. I just had a revelation, man.
Okay.
It makes so much sense now. Because like we read the Bible, these religious books, the people that's in power always had a plan to kill the male child.
Yeah.
Even when we go back to Greek mythology. Was it? I can't think of the name now, but his whole idea was to kill the son, and she gave him a rock. His old wife gave him a rock. Was it Zeus? Or Kronos? It was Kronos. She gave him a rock. He thought it was his son.
Yes.
And I think he ate the rock.
Yes.
But the whole idea of that is that they must kill the children or the male child, because they fear at one point in time they're gonna overtake the people, because they know that evil gonna come to an end.
Absolutely.
So even in all the biblical, even in the theology, and even now as I sit here and I'm listening to you, these people know. They say, well, damn. The higher you get, they know these people are our parents.
Right.
These black folks was here first. For whatever reason why, we done mixed them up. But if we ever let this man get on top of his game, just off the strength of what we did to them, they gonna tear our heads off. So you saying 400 years when they beat us, they beat the man, the biggest one on the plantation. Now you get up to 30 years ago, they tell our women, we got some benefits for you. We got you a better placement. We got somewhere for you to stay. But you gotta get this black man out of the house.
What is that all about? You see? What is that all about? Ain't that, I mean, once again, if we really deal with this thing in truth and not emotions, you see, and we can see that there's an outright campaign on something about that melanoid. You see? And it's definitely obvious at this point in 2020 that the political science project that was implemented on my people, going back to this 400-year time frame, it worked. It worked.
Boy,
it worked. It worked. It's very it's heartbreaking to say so, but then in the same token, we get it. How do we get it? Because when we deal with this humanoid, this Caucasoid that was birthed in the Caucasus Mountains. You see, Caucasus Mountains being in the Europe territory. If you know, we have somebody out there that just need to know right now. But do your due diligence on these words and on these timelines yourself. If you feel like, you know, you want to do something.
Right.
Okay?
If you want some smoke.
This Caucasoid, we have to deal with the fact was created, you see, or birthed thousands of years after the melanoid. What are we saying here? What we're saying is that the so-called black people of the planet Earth were here thousands of years before the so-called white man or the so-called white race was even able to be in the mix. Why are we saying this? Because we have to know that there's a sellout principle that is available to whoever chooses to use it.
Man.
You see?
Cold, man.
And once again, we're dealing with law, not emotions. So when we say a sellout principle, we know that principle is connected to law. Meaning, you have the free will to choose to use this principle or not. So once again, the sellout principle is in motion from the time of creation. Once again, like the good brother said, we can go back into biblical text, any type of religious text that you choose, the Quran, the Holy Bible, the Torah, the Kabbalah, the Aquarian Gospel. You see, whatever religious text you choose to go grab, you'll find this principle of sellout in the storyline.
Somewhere.
Where somebody chose to sell out. So what are we saying here? This is what we're saying. That we have to know that the people that was here first played a role in the people being created and birthed that came after them. That there was a experiment put on then. You see? Now when you go into the Yakub theory, and once again, the burden is on you to go do your due diligence on something that sounds, intriguing to you. You go ahead and do your due diligence. But what we're doing right now is just laying out outright history, science, and law. You see, that we've already done all of our due diligence on. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here spitting nothing, because I'm that type of individual. I'm not going to talk about anything that I don't know anything about. That's not my style. You see? So I'm just clarifying on the record that I am an autodidact.
I mean, he taught himself, man.
Okay? Self-taught. And got all of the literature and DNA code to back it up.
Come on. I want to just say this. My boy Uku in the chat, he say, to tear down any house, you must first subdue the strong man. And that just go back to what we were saying a minute ago. Back from 400 years, back from 4,000 years to 40 years to 30 to 4 years ago. If anywhere we trying to, you know what I'm saying, do some strong arming, we got to tie the man up first. But you can continue on what you were saying, because you're really making a hell of a point.
Principle. And how the sellout principle is available to any human being breathing. All these principles, the principle of truth, the principle of love, the principle of justice, the principle of freedom, you see, the principle of wisdom, you see, understanding is available to any human being walking the face of the earth. You see where we're going here? That we are dealing with laws, universal laws here, that's available to all humanity. And like we say, there has been some participants in the sellout principle from our family and their family. That we got to get that in our spirit. You see,
right.
So then you'll get over that emotional.
Remove the emotion.
The white man, but the white man won't let me. The white man got. You see, when you get everything into perspective, you see, put it in divine perspective, meaning emotions is not involved. When you put it in divine perspective, that means you're dealing with strictly law, history, science, and law. So when you do that, you'll get over the fact that, God, oh man, yeah, that was rough. And then you'll start to save yourself. Because that's the whole theme of life, is to save yourself. And we have been programmed in the mindset of looking for a savior. You see how that works? We have been programmed in the mind of looking for a savior.
Anything or anybody outside of your own self to come and change
Rescue
your
you.
environment, to change your life.
You see? Now, we're not saying that there won't be a human being or a humanoid, you see, that's available to you to inspire you, motivate you, you see what I'm saying, be of assistance to bring you out of a slump. You see what I'm saying? Something they said, something they showed you, something they taught you. We're not saying that that's not available to you through a human being. So don't misunderstand
So
what we're
divinely
saying.
inspired through another person in the flesh.
Exactly.
I want y'all to check this. I want y'all to just think about this. How we saying everybody look for somebody outside of themselves to save him. But listen to what the brother been going on his spiel. Is this some shit that they taught you in school? Did they teach us this shit in school or in college? No, they didn't. I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna answer for you, no. So I'm saying that to say that in order for the man to be able to speak in a certain type of fashion, he had to go and do a certain amount of research, put a certain amount of work in. Because if you wait on somebody else to just tell you that, you could go on YouTube or you can find some people that know certain parts. But to gain an understanding and to be able to verbalize that back in the manner that the brother is doing, that take time and hours and sacrifice in the bullshit to just save yourself. It ain't no easy task, or it's not convenient
At all.
It's a big inconvenience to figure out how I'm gonna get 2 hours out of my day to have reading and gain a full understanding.
Absolutely.
You got to go and search out and find this shit. You got to be inconvenienced if you want to get to the next level, because, like they say, it ain't gonna come to your front door.
No.
And even if it do come to your front door as a blessing, you have to have the wisdom and understanding to know how to unpackage the shit. Otherwise, you just got a
Bunch of information.
or you got a box right here at your front door, and you know it's nothing but diamonds and gold in it, but you don't even have the wisdom to get in there. You don't know the combination. You can't even pick the lock. So you got to be able to put the work in. You know what I'm saying, to gain a full understanding. And when you start to do that, I'm fully aware of how much more information and how easily you'll be led to the next step that'll gain you more understanding. Or you read this right here, it'll lead you to this book. And that book right there leads you to this book, and it'll have the answers that you were looking for 2 weeks ago. But go ahead. I just want to point out the fact of this ain't no shit you just can come just talk this shit without putting the work in, man.
Absolutely.
We gotta learn to put the work in if you want the results.
Absolutely. And there definitely is a reward in the workout. You understand? Because like you saying, when we're going into the whole knowledge of self realm, meaning, I'm gaining full knowledge of myself, not myself and my organization that I belong to, not myself and the high school that I graduated from. You know what I'm saying? Not myself and, you know, this egoic title that I carry on my job. You know what I mean? I'm a such and such tech. We're talking about the work done outside of there. You see? And of course, we know that just like the good brother was saying, you got to carve out an hour or two because we got this 30-day cycle of bills that's on our mind. That's when you become of age, of course, and start to, you know, make babies, etc. or whatever. You start to get in the know on this 30-day cycle of I gotta pay this and I gotta pay that. I gotta pay this and I gotta pay that. You see, and we know that 30-day cycle come very fast. We know that. So therefore, like the good brother saying, it's definitely not an easy task to carve out these hours, but it's definitely in your best interest to do so. Or if you don't have time, you have people like myself that has been given the opportunity by the universal God to go do my due diligence and allow my autodidactiveness to, you see what I'm saying, take a hold to my situation and really delve into man, know thyself. And once again, this is one of the results that we come to right now, like what we're talking about right now, energy and the birthing of a corporation and we get to talking about universal laws and you see what I'm saying, science, and how it's important to take all three, because that's our original Holy Trinity is history, science, and law. You see, if you taking one without the other, you're doing yourself a disservice. For example, if you just gonna concentrate on the historic part of the slave ships and not consider science and law, you'll continue to just only live life or respond to situations in life emotionally. If you just coming at it in a historical lane. But it's very imperative that you bring the science and the law into it. That's when we get to explaining the birthing of a Caucasoid in this territory called Europe. You see, and it's very important to note that when we're talking about the 7 continents, there's one that doesn't start with an A. Out of 6 out of the 7. And then we know, one of them is 3 in 1 because we got North America, Central America, and South America. You see, but we know when we're talking 7 continents, we're just saying North America and South America. So we know, of course, that's America. It starts with an A. You got 6 once again out of the 7 continents that's starting with an A, the very first letter of the alphabet. That's important to note, family. Now, once again, Europe, we already know, starts with an E. That's not an A. That shows some type of differences.
This ain't never hit me, man. I ain't never thought of that.
You see? We have to, once again, deal with this thing in a holistic fashion and come, you see, with a holistic form of thinking. Otherwise, we'll get lost in emotions. This corporation has a mean machine behind it. Remember, you had human bodies working for free. Now, if you get somebody to do all the work for you for free, you don't have to pay them, but you collecting on what they're doing for you, selling your shirts, selling your whatever, and you don't have to pay them for that. They bring you all the bread. You see what I'm saying? And not only bring you the bread, but in this case, our ancestors were showing people how to live. Agriculture is a major part of this corporation. Remember we said tobacco, that grow on land. Sugar, they manipulating the sugar cane and dyeing it white, etc. That's a whole nother conversation. You see, you got the sugar, you got the tobacco. Again, we already know about fruits and veggies. Because once again, this nationality of people that was born and created in Europe knew nothing about fruit and veggie eating. Like that wasn't a part of their diet. They were more on a fleshly diet. Mm-hmm. They ate dead flesh. They pretty much introduced that to who we call them the slaves. This 400-year time frame here, see? Now, and once again, now with food, you're configuring or you're changing the DNA code now. That's called epigenetics. Changing the environment and all that. That's important because now you're going to think different. If you're eating different, you're going to think different, period. We got to know that when we say health is wealth and clean up your diet, we got to know that we're not just talking about the food that you put in your mouth. We're talking about what you watch, what you read, what you listening to, you see? Because we can go all the way into this machine and how the soap operas, now what we have reality TV is replacing the soap operas. You see what I'm saying? We can go to the music. You see what I'm saying? We can go to all of that and see how there was a disconfiguring. You see, that there was a changing of a vibration of a whole nation of people that were godly to begin with. And they were trained and programmed to be devils. Act like devils. Because devils, you see, once again, like we said at the top of the show, devils hate. Devils don't love. So once again, when we're talking about my people, we know that there's a heavy dose of hate within our families. We can go into our immediate families. We talk about first cousins before we even get to, you know what I'm saying, this cat that I went to school with. No. You know what I mean? That I thought was my partner, and we and then we figured out, oh man, he really don't, and then we don't say, ain't Linda, don't mess with Ain't Shirley, they ain't talked in 15 years. And we know that we have an example of that of all our immediate families. All of our immediate, we don't even have to go to no, you see what I'm saying, organizations. You feel me? Like your denominational church, I'm Baptist and you Presbyterian. So we ain't even gotta go to all of that division. We can stay right at the Thanksgiving, Christmas holiday setting where we got all these family members. You see what I'm saying? We can pick right up in there where there's some division. That started once again from a diet being changed. You see? Because if you eating low vibrational, that's how you gonna act. That's simple, ain't it, family? You are what you eat, remember? You are what you eat. So if you eating a heavy dosage of POTUS, you see? POTUS, P-O-T-U-S, POTUS. And for y'all, you know what I'm saying, put it in your, punch it up in your Google, like Baba D. Gregory said, if you don't know what POTUS is, P-O-T-U-S, so I don't have to say it. But if you're putting a lot of energy in the POTUS, you are one of the ones that's going to have emotional problems. Why? Because the POTUS, his seat that he sits in, the vibration is already set once again. What are we saying here? The vibration is already set. His instructions on how to do, how to act, what to say, what emotions to goddamn on stroke is already set. And the main goal of the POTUS is to see how many citizens, citizens, that he can continue to manipulate and trick into believing that he got some type of power that is going to either do a certain group of people some good or not. We're talking about two parties representing one snake, just two different things. But we already know that the one snake with the two different fangs Republican, Democratic. These two different facts, they on the same snake. So are you telling me that if that snake bites you and you're a Democrat, that the Democratic fang is not gonna?
It ain't venomous.
You see how it
Ain't
works?
no poison in the Democratic fang.
You see? Walk with me now. You see? We trying to unravel our thought process and how we got here and how we got to this point of mind control. Because that's what it is. It all boils down to mind control because you don't know who you are. We don't know who we are collectively. We're the only nationality of people that the term used to reference us changes. We were Negro. We're talking about on the record now. We're talking about on the record. This is important because we know that a corporation runs off paperwork. We know that. You know that your employer was not going to hire you without some paperwork. Meaning, in order for you to get that check, you had to present what? You already know. We grown. I ain't have to go into the specifics of what you had to present your employer. You see? It's the same way with this corporation. This corporation has conspired, once again, to take your mind and control it. Once again, when we talk about the corporation, there was one way that the corporation was born, and the only way that it was born is because of human bodies, once again, being the work. Now let's go into this real quick. Let's slow down and walk through this as it pertains to how this citizenship was created, how you could even be a Democrat or a Republican. And we got to know that, you know what I mean, our ancestors, the bulk of them, you see what I'm saying, started out as Republicans. We got to know that's a very important part of history and the reason why they no longer called themselves Republicans and went on to the Democratic Party.
Now, we need to tell you folks who actually started the Democratic Party.
Who actually started the Democratic Party? Who would be the people that actually started?
How did we end up being down with the Klan Party?
Right. Because, yeah, exactly. Because once again, see, now you digging real heavy because it's important, like what the good brother say, to know that the Ku Klux Klan and the South represents really that Democratic Party.
Come on, man.
Because the burden is on you to go ahead and do your due diligence on that part of that time frame of this part of history. That's on you. We'll let you do that. But like we saying, you have to know that who we deem to be the enemy is definitely, yes, the forerunner of the Democratic Party and what it stands for. Now, how does it get to that? This is how we get to that stage. Because we hear this phrase, 3/5 of a person. This 3/5 of a person phrase, you see, is part of the Democratic Party being birthed. But we're not going to stay on that part right now. We just going to unravel and unpack how the 3/5 of a person is very important for us to know that we've been bamboozled on two pillars or two pieces of that pie that will make it 5/5. Now let's walk through it. 1776, the corporation was created. George Washington cut down his father's cherry tree with symbology of this corporation taking the nationality of people. Remember, we saying, we going back to my people, we legally, we've had different names that refer to us. No other group or no other nationality of people have to go through this change. Japanese been Japanese, Chinese been Chinese, the Irish been Irish. It ain't we don't never, you see what I'm saying, the Vietnamese, etc. We know what I mean? We don't never change the Australian, etc.
And you know what's crazy about what
we never change what we call them.
Everybody you just named, what they call themselves is connected to the land mass that they own.
There you have it. See, now we talking, we cooking, because that's where we going. You see, that's very important. That just like the good brother say, each one of these nationalities that we just named, like he said, Japanese, Chinese, Irish. We already know the Ireland. That's where the Irish is coming from. We already know the Japan. That's where the Japanese. That's their land. The Australian. We already know the Australian. You see, the Russian, Russia, etc. The European. We know Europe. That's it. Now for us, let's get to us, the melanoids of the planet. You remember we said the term used for us has been changed over and over. We colored. We started out Negro. We colored in there. You see, then we black
in the 70s.
We black, and then keep hope alive.
Jesse Jackson.
Keep hope alive. He come up with African American.
Come on, man.
You see, now you can't be from two different, you see, situations like that as it pertains to nationality. Now, you like we're saying, nationality to be writing exact involves 5 principles or 5 things. With nationality, you have land, you have a people, you have a seal, you have a flag, and you have a constitution or bylaws or laws of how to run it. Now, you hear what we just named, those 5 things? Now, think about all of your non-Greek and Greek fraternities. You see? That they gonna fall up under these lines too. They got a flag, you see, really, that they fly. You know what I mean? It's gonna be their colors or whatever. You see what I'm saying? They gonna have a seal. The seal, you see, and once again, we just going with, we're bringing that up only for you to see how nationality works and how life, if you pay attention, it mimics, you got different principles that mimic each other to where it all supposed to make sense, what we call logic. Now, once again, as it pertains to nationality, we talking about, there's a landmass that you know, for that go back to being a native. That goes back to being indigenous and being aboriginal. There's a landmass that is connected to your nationality. There is the people, the flag, the seal, and the laws, like how we running this thing. Now, with that being said, all of the changed labels that we refer to as ourselves within this corporation, how can we connect it to a landmass? You see? When we are saying that the landmass is a corporation, because we gotta know this now, that North America, Central America, and South America, that's America. So when we ask you, who is the president of America, who is that? Who do you say? What's the answer when we pose that question, family? Who is the president of America? See, we're going to answer that for you. Ain't none. There is no president of America. But when now mind you, see, keep in mind that this is landmass. North, Central, and South, that housed human bodies way before 1776. See, we got to know that. Now, just since I'm here, let's deal with this real quick. I'm just going to read just a piece of this, what I consider to be my son's homeschool curriculum. This is a part of my son's homeschool curriculum here. You know what I mean? I homeschool my son, FYI. I guess that's obvious since I said this was part of his curriculum. this is a fourth grade lesson right here. In the late 1500s, this is what it started out with. It's very simple, and once again, this comes out of this particular lesson comes out of a book that was purchased at Books A Million. You see, so we're saying that to let you know that this is no secret.
Right.
But it's important that we have someone in the know, like the good brother say. We're not gonna get this broken down to us like this here in the ISD. You see, and that's a whole nother conversation about the ISD and their role in the programming of the minds. But let us read just a little bit of this since we hear about how this corporation was created. This comes from a little lesson that I titled it "Coming to America." Because we got to know that it was already shaking and baking on this landmass before these people got here. We was already in the mix. Dig this. In the late 1500s, remember this is a fourth grade lesson. You can see that right there. It say grade 4. Grade 4. In the late 1500s, brave men, listen to the language of this. This is very important. In the late 1500s, mind you, we talking about going into the 1600s. Remember we just said 1619 is when the first bodies were shipped to Virginia. Keep that in mind here, because this lesson is telling us what the business is. In the late 1500s, brave men and women and their children sailed from Europe across the Atlantic Ocean to America. Walk with me, family. We just take, be patient. And of course, we'll be able to run this video back so we can really, you see what I'm saying, delve into it as a family later. I'm going to say it one more time. I'm going to go ahead and read through it like I want to. Because like I say, you can rewind it and hear what you need to hear. But dig this. In the late 1500s, watch the language. They're calling these men and women brave, family. Brave men and women and their children sailed from Europe across the Atlantic Ocean to America. Watch this. Looking for a better way of life.
Wow. That's fourth grade?
Fourth grade lesson. Let me let you look at it one more time. Look at it. Grade 4. You see? But once again, we got to get this real breakdown. Now, when it say looking for a better way of life, that lets you know,
it was fucked up in Europe, man.
David, watch this. I'm glad he said that. Watch this. These people wanted better jobs than they had in their homelands. And many wanted the freedom to choose their own religion. See, that means, once again, you remember we told you it's a beastie spirit going on in this part of the planet. Beastie. Still others wanted the opportunity to be able to buy land. They couldn't buy land in Europe. They didn't have good jobs.
They was running out of land.
They was running out of land because it's a small little old Caucasus Mountain plate.
Running out of food.
All of that. One of the reasons why they started to eat each other.
Come on. I'm just going to say that.
This period of time in America is known as the Colonial Period. It lasted about 170 years. During this time, many colonists worked very hard creating a new nation. You remember we told you, watch the language. The colonists, that means the perpetrators, the Antichrist, if you will. Because anything against Christ is the Antichrist. Christ is discipline. Christ is love. Christ is a anointing oil. You see, Christ is a title, etc. And we have to define it in its holistic form so we can really know what we're talking about here. But anything we know anti is against. That's my own personal way of labeling these beastie people. When we say colonists, we can say pilgrims.
What they call them on Black Panther?
We could replace that word with what they call them?
Colonizers.
That's what they call them. The colonizers. You see? Once again, you just have to be, in the right place at the right time so you can get the right answer. Mm-hmm. How about that? With that being said, during this time, many colonists worked very hard creating a new nation. This first colony, Jamestown, was established in 1607. Jamestown, Virginia, family. Remember we said 1619 is when the first bodies came, and the horrific time frame of this political science project started. Right up in here. Now, as you can see, this is 4th grade. They're telling you that a people coming from somewhere, that's why they were brave. That's why they labeling them brave. That's why they're giving them that label. Because they, first of all, we're in the Pisces age, the Piscean age, which Pisces is a water sign, so we're traveling on water. You see, ain't no roads and all that. Of course, the airplane is not even invented yet. You see, of course. So they on these ships. So when they call them brave, they not true. They really don't have the
navigation skills.
There you have it. They don't have the ability to navigate the waters. Thank you.
And not
because they don't know the science.
And so
they had to be taught the science.
We know also through study and research who was on there teaching them how to sail the ship.
Exactly.
That's where the Moors come into the game.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we have to know that historically, so we won't be so caught up in emotions to know that it was one of the brothers. You see, that got caught up. Now it's of course it's a wealth of history that you really got to get to know why he was on the boat and how and all that.
And also along with that, because that story, what they teach in 4th grade, the shit you read, it proves it's there. Everything that we saying. But some of the shit they leave out, once you realize shit.
Commentary.
People that was on that ship was some of the grimiest or the most criminals or some of the worst of the Europeans that they really had got out of the prisons and was using them as an experiment to try to get to the new land mass and see what was over, because they didn't know. Right. They was traveling, getting lost. And that's why they said, man, we need to get one of these niggas that's been, because these niggas, they ain't gonna tell you that we've been on these ships from before they can remember. They ain't gonna tell you we've been going from Africa over here in these ships. If you ain't read They Came Before Columbus, you need to go check that book out by Ivan Van Sertima. But we've been making these trips, so they wouldn't got a nigga to help them sail the waters. And so you wonder why, right on time, you wonder why when they got some movies that they showed when the European first came over to these lands, the Indians, them motherfuckers were scared of them because they had never seen the pale-skinned people like this in their whole life. And so, I can't think of the movie, but it also shows you in that movie how I don't want to just say the Indian, I want to say the Aboriginal or the people that was on this land before they got here. We wasn't used to the beastly, we wasn't used to the evil, the demonic spirits that had got off that boat because they took these people in. And to try to begin to show them a way of life. And what did they do in return? They started to murder and pillage out the gate. They say, these people is gonna let us walk up in here. We finna start fucking on their women, all their babies and whatever, and we're gonna kill the man or whoever trying to stop it. So they brought that attitude over here before they ever enslaved anybody. They came with the mentality of, we come to really take over, seek, conquer, destroy, because these were criminals that came over here, but they were sent by the queen. The shit get deep. I just want to point that out.
As you can see, and the good brother is talking about the Spanish Inquisition. When you're talking about, you see, they got the okay and approval from the queen, because the queen had to finance this trip.
Facts.
You see? And of course, war, you know, it costs. So anytime there's war and and once again you trying to take over, there definitely has to be some finances involved. So the stamp of approval, of course, yes, came during that Spanish Inquisition time, Queen Isabella, etc. You do your due diligence on that, and you'll find that it financed this trip right here that we're reading about. The first colony, once again, Jamestown, and we got to know that colony is a ancient word for state. Like you live in the state of wherever you at, state of Texas, state of Georgia, state of California, state of Wisconsin. We could exchange this word colony for state. We got to know that. This, once again, was the first colony was Jamestown, Virginia. It was established in 1607. Between 1607 and 1733, 13 permanent colonies were established on the east coast of America. These colonies started to grow and prosper as more and more people from other countries began to immigrate. As the population of the colonies grew, trade and manufacturing developed quickly, especially in towns that had good harbors. Remember we just said it was the Piscean Age, that's a water sign, you see, so the harbors right there on the east coast of Virginia and Maine and New York and Michigan, all of those areas right up in there, you see what I'm saying, Florida, the Carolinas, that's right on the coast, Georgia, Louisiana, you see, that's right on the coast, Alabama. That is where it started jumping off at because you could send in and out goods. And of course, them goods cost. You see, despite the growth and the many successes of the colonies, the colonists also faced their fair share Despite the growth and the many successes of the colonies, the colonists also faced their fair share of problems. Watch this, because you should face some problems. You come into a land where it's already established, and you already done took over because you done started a goddamn corporation. That's what the 13 colonies is. We know that now. That was the corporation being created to where, once again, the corporation would grow and get consent of the governed to do so. What are we saying? Consent of the governed. Those that consider themselves U.S. citizens. That's the governed. And you give consent with your signature. See? This is law here, not emotions. When you give your signature on whatever that is, when you register your baby with the registry of the county of this, the city of that, you giving them the consent all the way to the ISD. That's why you will never go into the independent school district and change nothing because you are an employee. You are a slave. When you give consent once again and you sign your baby over, see, let's deal with it now. You know what I'm saying? Like we said, we're dealing with truth, not emotions here. And that's what this corporation operates on, ignorance of the law. But ignorance of the law is no excuse. You see? Every living, breathing individual gets the opportunity to come into the know of the light. The light being, we already know what the light is. You can see. That's what the light, universally, this information as it pertains to knowledge of self is known or labeled as the light. Meaning you coming out of darkness, baby. And you seeing life for what it really is. You see? You used to sing a song they used to sing a song in church when I was a little boy. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine.
Take your time,
oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Watch this. Do what they say. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, everywhere I go. Oh, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, everywhere I go.
You better sing, boy.
I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. You see what I'm saying? This is the light universally that song was talking about. That song was talking about this exact power or this exact principle that's available to us. You see,
hey, y'all didn't know Second Son could sing.
Yeah,
you just found out, man. But go ahead. I couldn't let that go without you said.
You know, this we warming the press box media, you know what I'm saying, group up. Second Son, you know, they say first impressions is, you know what I mean, is
boy, look here it is.
So we have to bring our best, watch this, A game. Not E.
Not the E game.
But the A game. You see? So we can be convincing to the family that we're not playing. We serious. We for real about knowledge of self, health as wealth as it pertains to let's awaken to our godly selves and stop playing with these devils. Because if you waddle in the mud with pigs, you're gonna come out muddy. That's the bottom. Ain't no if, ands, buts about it. Ain't no way around it. You see? So once again, the light, going back to that light, is here in the curriculum here. We're unraveling it. Once again, back to the consent of the governed. You see? The consent of the governed, the governed is an example of those that light has been down. Those light that has been covered. Those lights, those are the ones the light won't even come on. You see, that's the example of the consent of the governed. And once again, when you give the government consent to do what they do, these are the results. And once again, this corporation was being set up, as we can see, right here. And it's being set up going back to, like we said, an evil vibration. Because you see, these people, they taking over. They're not even from here. Now let's go on down here to exactly what happened. And then we're gonna be through with this. Flies in the building, trying to, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Now what? Let's delve into it and see exactly what was going on when we say that the colonists faced their fair share of problems. One very big problem was the friction between the colonies and Britain. See, Britain, you got to remember what the good brother just said. This is where the finances was coming from for this takeover. And Britain want their peace. You see, you got to bring mine back. You know how it go when you get fronted? You know what I'm talking about? When you get fronted, yeah, you got to bring mine back now. You know what I'm saying? That's just protocol. You know what I mean? That makes sense. You needed to work.
Right.
I fronted you to work. I financed for you to go out there and work the work. So to bring me mine back. The colonists wanted very much to control themselves and have more say in making decisions that affected them. See, the colonists then came to a foreign land to them, then took over, and then now they want to make decisions that according to how they want. However, the British Parliament would not allow it. This angered the colonists, so they often ignored British laws. Watch this. As Britain imposed more and more taxes on the colonists, see, I'm taxing you for everything, all the goods. The colonists grew angrier and angrier. Acts passed by Parliament such as the Sugar Act. You see the sugar? Remember what we said? And the Stamp Act. Okay, now we got the stamp come in. It's a hot commodity because that's how we ship our goods. Forced the colonists to take action against Britain. Okay, let's say that again. Acts passed by Parliament, such as the Sugar Act and the Stamp Act, forced the colonists to take action against Britain. Watch this. In 1774, Remember, the corporation was born July 4, 1776. So pay attention to this. In 1774, delegates from all the colonies except Georgia. Remember, Georgia was the last ones that agreed to the foolery. But you know, the numbers, they sound so impressive to where eventually, yeah, they had to come on in.
Right.
You know what I mean? But at first, Georgia wasn't. They was against this evilness. In 1774, delegates from all the colonies except Georgia met to decide how to gain some independence from Britain. Their attempts failed. They met again in 1775. Walk with me now. Watch this. The first attempt in 1774 failed. They attempted again in 1775. The delegates helped organize an army, this is important, and a navy to fight the British soldiers. You see why the army and navy was created? You see that, family? The army and navy was created to fight for something, you see, that literally just needs to be paid for. Really.
That's it. You don't buy. They done ran off on the plug. Britain is the plug.
You see?
They done ran to the colonies over here because the Britain gave them all the shit to make it happen. Now they got over here and realized, shit, man, we can have so much more if we just don't pay them no more. You niggas got that same mentality. Ran off on the plug and want to build an army.
See?
God.
And that's exactly, once again, how we need this broken down, family, so we can understand it in our melanoid type mind. See, because you know the ISD curriculum is culturally biased. You see, so of course we need somebody in there to break this down. But like we see, this is the 4th grade lesson.
Right.
It's free. It's free in the independent school district. It's free, but the breaking down of it, you see, the dissecting of the words, and you see what I'm saying, actually defining and knowing what's going on has to be disseminated by, you see, a melanoid. Another, you know what I'm saying, to where we...
Somebody, not only a melanoid, but somebody that's done did the due diligence and put the work in.
That's right.
And can say what the fuck it really is, because
so
the teachers in the school, they just gonna read the shit and give you and grade on your memory.
That's right.
But to be able to go off into it and tell you timelines and why these people did what and why the army and they were born, you gotta be connecting dots.
That's
Man,
right.
go ahead and finish this, but we gotta leave them something. We gotta
Exactly. Now, like we said, the delegates helped organize, like y'all already see why the Army and Navy was formed. We see that. The colonists wanted freedom from Britain. They outlined this freedom on July 4, 1776 in the Declaration of Independence. And that's pretty much it. That's the bulk of that. That's pretty much the bulk of that lesson. You see what I'm saying? They come once again out of a curriculum book purchased, a scholastic, book purchased out of the books of men.
For a 4th grader.
So you see, we just walked you through how this corporation was created. Now, don't you see that there was no morals or values involved in this? It was straight takeover. So the whole point of it all is how you gonna change vibrations all of a sudden because you got some people talking about, oh no, Black Lives Matter, or you see what I'm saying? And we're not poking fun at nobody. That's not what we're saying here. But we're just using an example of emotions. Like that's an emotional movement when you're not dealing with history, science, and law. And when you deal with history, science, and law, you take your energy elsewhere, and you intently you see what I'm saying? You on purpose. You use that energy on your God self.
You know what I would say if I heard somebody say, white lives matter? So get the fuck on with that stupid ass shit. That's what I would say if I heard some people out there really saying, white lives matter. Who are we trying to convince?
Right.
You are the people that we are inevitably been fighting against. You never gonna convince them that your life matters.
Never.
If your life matters, that's gonna be the end of theirs. Not because I said so, but because of by nature. They are about to be fucking bred out of this motherfucking situation in a minute.
And of course, now we're specifically talking about a systematic way how the whole recipe has been put in place. Going back to, if Willie Lynch was a brother or not, or if he existed or not, we can go back to that Willie Lynch letter, which was presented, what they tell us is 1712. You see, now that's important, that from 1619 is when it all started, and as you can see, the corporation was really birthed, or started to be birthed in 1607. You say, really, that's when this Continental Congress got together and put it all together. So we got to know that, you see what I'm saying? With that came a recipe that sounds similar to the Willie Lynch letter of 1712. That, you could do your due diligence on that. I think at this point we all pretty much know what the Willie Lynch letter says. And of course he said this recipe could last you and until 300 years. Remember?
Right.
And if you do 1712 plus 300, that's 2012. So you already know that we passed the goddamn on time frame on that, because we in 2020. So once again, if we got evidence of this recipe that we still staring at as it pertains to how our families have been divided, how, you see what I'm saying, light skin versus dark skin is still going, good hair versus so-called bad hair is still going. The Willie Lynch letter said we'll pit the old against the young. You know how the older, you see what I'm saying, a lot of times don't want to go ahead and just hear the young or whatever. So we still, you see what I'm saying, it's important that we know that this recipe is still cooked up, and the only way that we can dismantle it is to get a thorough knowledge of self and activate on it. Don't just be, information masturbator. Just masturbating on information.
Just knowing a bunch of shit.
I know this. I know.
Place of action.
You see,
to put the shit to use.
That's all we're saying. And putting it in motion for second son would be me homeschooling my children. Would be me refraining from eating meat. You know what I'm saying? I'm just telling my story as far as how you take the knowledge of self and then start to kick the wisdom in. Wisdom being the action. Because knowledge is one thing. Knowing that a tomato is a fruit is knowledge. But not putting it in a fruit salad is the wisdom. You see? That's the wisdom. So once again, knowing is just half of the battle.
I'm telling you.
But are you willing to activate it as it pertains to, this principle of wisdom? Because once again, when you know better, you do better. And that's just, a quick piece of my testimony of how a thorough knowledge of self has really shaken me out of severe depression, etc., and put me on a solid rock to stand on. You see? And then here we are, me and Lean, talking to y'all. Once again, I know that I manifested being here right now, talking to the family on this podcast, something that has been definitely brewing in my spirit to go ahead and either create a podcast or link up and see. And once again, the creation, that's already out. I've linked up, as you can see, family, you see what I'm saying, to a media outlet that's about that life. And when we say about that life, it means this platform from my studies is not specifically dealing with mainstream topics and whining about this and that. I see that this platform has been created for a resting place of knowledge of self, of, like, you see what I'm saying, where one can go and try to do better for self. Because this platform I already see has a spirit of helping. Because I hear them, you know what I mean? I've been following them and listening to them, and I already know that they have this spirit of helping and giving. So once again, that energy and that frequency that I have on me, it matches up.
Come on
as
in.
we can see.
Come right on in.
And here we are.
Come right on in. Hey, man. That was a cold bill right there, man.
Yeah, that was
a cold right there, man.
That was good.
Hey, y'all missed the press box, man.
What's the time frame on that? Do we know?
Man, we got
We
like
went in.
an hour and a half.
That's lovely.
That was an hour and a half, man.
Because that's a good foundation to let the family know what Second Son talking about.
Come on.
You know what I mean? Because when Second Son come through, this is the flavor that we will be discussing. You know, this is what we'll be delving into when Second Son come to the table. We talking about knowledge of self. You see, health is wealth. Seriously. And once again, when we say health is wealth, we're not just talking about the food that you eat. We're talking about the company you keep. What y'all talking about? What you read? What you watching on TV? What type of music? You see what I'm saying? What movies and all that is turning you on? What are you doing in your extracurricular time? Are you one of the ones that's just, you see what I'm saying? You're sitting around, you see what I'm saying, waiting on the Savior? Or are you one of the ones, you see what I'm saying, digging deep and trying to find all avenues that's gonna make your situation better? That's what we on.
And if you know better, you do better, man.
Period.
Hey, man, we're gonna go and wrap it up, man, and get back in the lab, man, so we can come back to y'all again, man. We appreciate y'all for tuning in, man. Everybody's off in the chat. Man, I see we got the chat kind of lit right now,
Okay,
man.
that's what's up.
Appreciate y'all, man. Y'all go like, subscribe. You know, if you're on the Facebook, whatever, post this. You know what I'm saying? Tell somebody to go listen to this. You may not even want to post it. Put it in somebody else's DM. But if you got something out of it, share us with some more folks, man, because they might be to get some more out of it too. Like my man said, we here to help enlighten. And if y'all know somebody that got some enlightenment, they want to come sit down with us, talk about their shit, they need some promotion, they need some marketing, they need anything that we can help provide a service for, we here, that's what we here for. You know what I'm saying?
You gotta give them your socials.
Yeah.
In case they don't know.
Y'all
There's
don't
gonna
know.
be some new people come through.
Y'all can find us on Instagram at the Press Box Media Group.
Go to the press box.
Then on
Follow them.
on YouTube, also the Press Box. Go hit that subscribe button, hit that little bell, so you will know exactly when we come on, and you won't be late. You always be on time with us.
You can find me on Instagram, Second Son. That's second with a K. SEKONDSUN, the number 9. Second Son 9. On Instagram, I'm Kaleem Bay. My free national appellation on Facebook, Kaleem Bay, KALEEM Bay, BEY, on the book. And I'm also Second Son on YouTube. Second Son, SEKONDSUN. And once again, I've had a very, you see what I'm saying, a very good time, just to make it plain, at my first stop at the Press Box Media Group podcast, man. Barlene come through, you know what I'm saying, out of nowhere, and just, you see what I'm saying, yeah, let's do this. And here we are. So once again, family, check the socials and stay tuned in to the Press Box Media Group on their YouTube and their Instagram. Be sure y'all go do that and stay in tune, because 2020, as you can see,
It's up there.
is about
How
to
y'all
be
saying? It's up there.
busy and on fire. Peace.
We out of here, man.